Hi guys, before I begin this video, I would like to acknowledge and say hello to any of my students who might be watching this. Last week, my students found my channel and I'd like to tell you all that I do not care. If you're spending your free time watching me on YouTube, then you clearly have got your priorities mixed up and you need to go do your homework for other subjects. I say that because I haven't given you any homework for music so far, so aren't you lucky? Also, my principal found my channel on the exact same day as my Year 7s. So hello, if you're watching too. Today I thought I'd give some tips to any Prac teachers or people who are at uni at the moment about to do their Pracs. I'm making this video because I have never been able to find any tips for teaching high school music on YouTube anywhere. And so from my experience, I had 3 Pracs. I had a primary school Prac, which I did at a private all-girls primary school. And then I had a public high school Prac, which was focusing on 7 to 10. And then I had a final high school Prac, which was 7 to 12, but with a focus on year 11 and 12. And that was at a selective all boys public school. My first tip is kind of a preparation thing, but try and find out what grades you're teaching ahead of time and what topics they'll be looking at. The more preparation you can get done before you even start at the high school, the better. Because you get so busy during a Prac and you're doing everything usually last minute and trying to get resources created and plan lessons and get to know the school and get to know the kids really quickly, you'll be able to get your ideas together about what sort of things you might want to teach, how you want to teach things, any repertoire you might want to use, any videos you like, that sort of thing. Then you're going to be a bit more ahead, which is a relief. Another one of my big tips is just to be as involved as possible, especially as a music teacher. Music teachers are usually obscenely busy and have a lot more on their plate than other teachers. Controversial, maybe. So depending on the school you're at, you might actually have a lot of opportunities to attend rehearsals for different ensembles, for choirs, going to different school events, and I would say try and get as involved as you can without burning yourself out. When I was on my second Prac, I wrote a piece for the junior percussion ensemble that they had, and it was really fun, and they got to learn the piece together, and I was attending the rehearsals, and so that was really enjoyable for me. On the same Prac, I also did an arrangement for the junior choir. I was able to teach them the arrangement and it was really fun, and I could try out my own strategies for teaching the piece that I already knew so well because I'd already arranged it. Being as involved as possible leaves such a good impression on not only the teachers that you work with and the conductors, but the school in general and the students. If someone new comes to a school and then they're super involved and they're super enthusiastic, that's only going to give a good impression on the kids and show that you care. My next tip is to try and watch a variety of teachers of other subjects as well as music as much as you can. Some of the best advice I ever got from a teacher on my Pracs was from a retired design technology teacher who had come back to the school as a casual. He had amazing insight. He used to be an assistant principal, and so he really knew his stuff and he gave fantastic advice even though he didn't understand the content or the repertoire or anything, but he still had amazing advice to do with teaching. My next tip is to be willing to try lots of new things even if you think it might not work for you, because the only way you can figure out what works for you and what doesn't is actually just trying it. Also on that though, be mindful that if something works for someone else, like the classroom teacher you're working with, and it doesn't work for you, that's okay. Sometimes behavior management strategies just don't gel with your personality, or an approach to a task might not just suit you and you might not be able to pull it off in the same way that another teacher could. You have to try a lot of different strategies to see what really sticks, and so you can figure out your sort of personality and approach in the classroom. On the same sort of train of thought as that, try and make really good relationships with your students. It will make your life so much easier and you'll have so much more fun. And kids who really like you and respect you will be sometimes your saving grace in a class. Like if lots of kids are talking and then there's one kid who just respects you and is willing to stick up for you and yell at his peers to tell them to shut up or something. Sometimes coming from a peer is way more effective than coming from you, so time is never wasted on making relationships with your students. Since I began in the high school in my current school, when I was alone in the classroom with my students, I actually realized that I could banter with the students and that got them on my side a lot easier, and I had way more fun. I wasn't able to try that out at all on my previous Pracs because I just felt that it wasn't okay, or I would be marked down for trying to, you know, have a bit of banter or like wasting time or something. But it really works well for me, and it gets the kids on my side, and we get through stuff a lot easier, and we have a way better relationship. So I was glad to figure that out once I'd done all my teaching pracs, but it would have been nice if I could have done that earlier. My next tip is to not be afraid to observe something. I know that once you start teaching more regular classes with your supervising teacher just watching, it can feel like you're not allowed to ask to just watch something anymore, that you just have to keep going. But it's entirely okay to do that. If you're not sure how to teach something, if you don't know how to approach it, how your teacher would normally do it, just ask and observe, and you'll probably gain a lot more instead of feeling really unconfident, because that does come across to the students as well. My next tip isn't something that I personally experienced when I was doing my pracs, but it did happen to a friend or two of mine. So this is just kind of a heads up, no matter what subject you teach, just be aware that some supervising teachers will take advantage of having a prac student and then proceed to make them do all the work, not give any guidance, any support, any really good feedback. If you ever feel like you've been thrown in the deep end with no support, no guidance, do contact your uni and your uni supervisor, and maybe they can intervene for you to ensure that the teacher at the school understands their expectations and what is supposed to be happening. Your supervising teacher at the school is supposed to be your mentor, and they're supposed to help you and teach you everything that they can while you're there. And if they're just treating it as a holiday where someone gets to teach all their classes and they still get paid for it, that's entirely unfair. My final tip is just kind of a hindsight sort of thing. Be aware that doing full-time work for no money is not easy, and teaching as a job in itself is not easy at all. Obviously it can be quite difficult if, you know, you have rent to pay, you've got bills to pay, and you're working full-time, and then you need to work on the side to support yourself. I'd suggest trying to only leave work to the weekends. Don't try and work after school. I've had friends who did that and they were dying on prac. It's really easy to fall into the trap of doing a prac and spending all of your time just working on stuff for school and not actually, you know, taking care of yourself, eating well, exercising, and socializing. When you're doing your teaching prac, this is like the ultimate thing that you need are friends who are also doing a teaching prac at the same time. You need to vent, and you need someone who understands what you're going through, because there's only so much that another friend who's not a teacher or a partner or whatever can understand unless they've been in the classroom themselves. So much happens in one day at a school, especially when you're on prac and everything is new to you, and you need to unload that, or otherwise you're like never gonna sleep really. Teaching is really hard. It's really draining. It's like you're on stage for hours a day and you have to make sure you're prepared and you know what you're doing. And especially when you're inexperienced, it's even harder. So try and be kind to yourself, try and take care of yourself. Understand that you can't do it all. You sometimes just need to take a step back, take a break if you think that you're spending all your time doing teaching. And the cleaners are vacuuming right now, so I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you if you made it all the way to the end, and I hope these tips could help any of you who are prac teachers, especially in a music classroom. I hope any of these tips were helpful, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. If you're a student who's still watching, go do your homework, seriously.